It's something he promised in his 2018 election campaign. Premier Doug Ford officially announcing that beer, wine, and canned cocktail drinks will be sold in Ontario convenience stores and gas stations come January 2026.
In 2018, we made a promise to you. We made a promise to the people of Ontario to bring beer and wine to convenience and grocery stores across Ontario. These new rules finally put Ontario in line with Quebec and other provinces and pretty well everywhere else in the world.
Under the new rules, the cap on the number of grocery stores allowed to sell beer will also be removed. Okay, let's go to our Richard Southern now. Richard, I saw that the Premier seems like he was in a little bit of a social mood and making his way through the crowd of reporters, and you came face to face with him. What was that conversation like?
Yeah. Premier doesn't usually come up to us after the controlled announcement. He did, and so, we asked the Premier, do you really think this is safe to be selling alcohol at gas stations in the early morning hours, as this is going to allow for come 2 years from now? Faiza, he defended that. We also asked him, I asked him about price. Is this going to push the price of beer up? Right now, Faiza, you go into a beer store in Ottawa and your choice of suds is the same price as if you walked into a beer store in Windsor. That's likely going to change now because retailers can set their own pricing. So yes, the Premier was in a chatty mood, and I guess maybe for good reason, Faiza, because he's been promising this for 5 years, as you know.
Okay, making good on that promise. So part of the agreement for these sales too is to break off sort of a relationship with the beer store. What can you tell us about that relationship, the agreement that will no longer be in effect once this goes into effect, and how is the industry reacting?
This is why it's taking 2 years for this to happen. This is not going to start until January 2026 because the government is letting the contract it has with the beer store elapse. If it were to break that, it would cost taxpayers a lot of money. Right now, the beer store, which, by the way, is privately owned. A lot of people think it's like an LCBO. It's not. It's owned by a conglomerate of big brewers, including Labatt's. And right now, they sell, most of the beer in the province. You can buy some at grocery stores, but if you want to buy a 12-pack, or a 2-4, you got to buy that from the beer store. When this contract expires in January of 2026, you'll be able to buy a 2-4 or a 12-pack from a convenience store like the one behind me, from a big box store like a Costco or a Walmart, and even from gas stations across the country. So it's going to be a big shift. The beer store is sticking around. They can still sell beer. They're going to have a lot more competition. They are, though, going to handle a lot of the beer distribution. And Faiza, they're also, and this is important, going to continue to handle a lot of the recycling that goes on for the cans and bottles.
Okay. There was also another big talker at this press conference here, which is the dissolution of Peel Region, the province no longer going forward with those plans. An announcement that was made yesterday, but Premier Doug Ford was not in attendance. So a few questions posed his way there. His response seems to be that, this is not backtracking, it's just an amendment.
Yeah, the whole not going to dissolve Peel was like the latest backtrack in a long series of backtracks for the Ford government. So, Ford was asked repeatedly today, are you not looking before you leap? And his answer was, this is actually a pretty good spin, I would say, Faiza. His answer was, hey, if we do something wrong, we're going to correct it. We don't mind going back on our word if it's what the people want. So that's the way he tried to frame Peel. He was asked about breaking a promise to his late friend Hazel McCallion. He says, no, that's not the case. If this dissolution would cost taxpayers a lot of money, it's not what the late Miss McCallion would want. So that's the way the Premier tried to frame it here, Faiza.
And I know you also asked about incoming Ontario Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie, who reacted to that news yesterday as well. How do you think their relationship will change as she assumes this new role in the new year?
Yeah, he hasn't congratulated Bonnie Crombie. He has, sort of attacked her personally for owning a house in the Hamptons, which she doesn't. I asked the Premier about that, saying, hey, are you afraid of Bonnie Crombie? Didn't answer. A complete pivot. He started talking about, hey, what we're going to do different from the Liberals. So he didn't care to get in to the whole Bonnie Crombie side of things today, Faiza, but I'm sure she's on his mind.
Okay, Richard Southern, thank you so much for this update. We'll chat with you later on City News. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Faiza.